So obviously you have an incredible amount of experience in this field. What are some plans that you have, as far as business wise and empowering women, and where's your mind going as far as upcoming things for your clients and the people that you work with?
So I have like one-on-one coaching where I call it self-love by design. So that could be anywhere between, debunking beliefs and working through the beliefs that you have about yourself, because everybody's different. There's no textbook for self-love. And I'm a believer that there's a difference between self-love and self-care. I believe self-care is, that's where you go for walks, and that's where you do your hair and your makeup to feel good, and you pamper yourself and you do things like that. But to me, self-love is brain training. It is emotional training. It is becoming emotionally intelligent to be able to control your emotions, because that's self-love, because that's looking after your emotional and mental well-being.
Yep.
And so, depending on the client, depending on where they're at and what they need, it's a design. It's self-love by design for them. What do they need? What are they looking for? How can I help them achieve what they want to achieve? How can I help them move through this? Because what might work for you might not work for someone else. For me, I couldn't meditate because I couldn't stop all the monkeys enough in my head to shut up and just be hushed. I don't do journaling because that's not me. So those things didn't work for me, but they may work for, like, my 13-year-old. She's just started journaling, and that's great. That works for her. She enjoys doing that. And so that's where I created the self-love by design, that it's all about you, and it's all about what you need and how I can help you get through that. And with boundaries, I have a workshop called Boundaries by Design, because, again, boundaries are designed for individual people, for individual people.
Mm-hmm.
So, one person might have just that one person in their life, which could be their partner, because they're isolated from everybody. How can they assert boundaries with that person? How can they start small and work their way up? Because you can't just go in charging like a bull, because you might own a house together and you've got things, and they may not even be able to leave their partner, so they have to learn a way to be able to find a little bit of their self-worth and cohabitate in a way that they feel good about it, or better about it, until they can get to that point where they can feel confident to leave or change, or or plan. Some of my clients, I help them plan. Okay, so how can we plan to get you where you want to go? And on the 30th of August, for an hour a day for a week, I've got a Boundaries by Design workshop. So that'll be a live workshop where I will work with whoever comes, and we just go through, the emotions that boundaries, why you don't have boundaries. What emotions do you feel? Is it fear? Is it being, the repercussions of voicing? What sort of emotions do you need to get rid of to be able to start asserting boundaries? And then breaking down the process of what boundaries are.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that your 13-year-old is journaling.
I know, it was so cute, because she's bought this because it was their birthday last week, and so she bought all this stationery stuff, because she's very creative. She's very like me. She loves drawing and stuff like that. She's like, "Oh, Mum, look at my journal. She's got all these daisies." And she's like, "Now this is for, when I clean my teeth, and this is for like how I feel." And she drew, I don't even know how she come up with half this stuff, but she's got this flower, and she's got her moods, and mood 1, 2, 3, 4, how she's feeling each day. And
wow.
And it's really good for her, because she was actually born with anxiety. She actually had anxiety as a baby.
Wow.
And she I've worked with her so closely with her. My twins are like chalk and cheese. One, she doesn't care what anybody thinks, and my other one cares what everybody thinks.
Wow.
And so we work a little bit more with the one that cares about what everybody thinks. And every day when she gets in my car and I pick her up from school, she'll be like, oh, so-and-so, said this to me. And I'm like, she did that because she wants you to feel bad. She does that because you're a better drawer than her. Don't let her make you feel bad because, and then she goes, oh, she might have taken my pencil and she doesn't give it back. Don't lend her your stuff, Rebel. Just stop.
Yeah.
And she's such a sweetie. But yeah, she's created this whole journal that she's done, and I didn't tell her to do it. She's just decided that, that's what she's going to do.
Me too. I do. So I started my journal when I was 12, and I have 20.
I saw that, and you read from your journals.
I read every Monday. Yep, every Monday for an hour. I read in chronological order, and I love it. Like, I am so glad that I did it, because what's interesting is I'm actually learning how young I was when a lot of my thought processes were starting. I could see it, like
the pattern there. Yeah.
So it's helping me. It's like almost like a therapy for me. Yeah,
absolutely. I wish I had done the same thing.
Yeah,
because I can think back and I think, oh my God, like, what was I thinking then? But I have it actually written down to be able to read it, to go, like, what was I thinking? Like, wow, how immature was I? Or how, or you can notice the day that, you had this epiphany of something. Oh, I think that's fabulous.
Yeah. So I always, in the beginning of it, I always encourage, I'm like, if you're a mother of a daughter or anybody, but like, daughters do it. Like, I think girls do it. I think guys, it's weird. But encourage them to write in a journal, because it is great therapy. I wrote everything in my journal, like everything. So it's great therapy to be able to talk things out and write things out. So I love that. That's so cool.
I guess I didn't do it because now that you've just like said all that, and thinking back to my childhood, is because I was not allowed to have anything that was personal. My mum used to go through my room. I was not allowed to have anything personal. Like, she would literally go through my room when I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And if she found something that she wasn't having, if I had a journal, she would have sat there and read it. Like, I was not allowed to have anything that was just for me.
Wow.
And so that's probably why I never did that sort of stuff, because I knew that she would find out and I wouldn't want her to read what I was writing.
Yeah. I actually joke about that. I'm like, because my mom is the one that encouraged me to do it. She used to buy my journals for me, like little cute cats and dogs and like birds or whatever. And I joke about that. Like, I wonder if my mom did this on purpose so she could see, my thought process. So while I'm reading, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I hope my mom didn't read that. Because there's times when I was literally like, oh, I hate my whole family. Or like, I was just, that's the mood that I was in. I was just angry that day, or my sister sucks or whatever.
Yeah.
But those are the things that, I can't even imagine if I didn't have my voice, which I'm an empath. I didn't have a voice growing up. But then if I also didn't journal, I don't even know what I would have done. Like, who do you talk to about all your feelings and all the things,
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful that she made me do that. Whether she read it or not, I was never reprimanded for anything that I wrote that I know of. Maybe like silently, she like made me do the dishes like 4 days in a row or something. And I just didn't calculate it in my head as punishment. Like, who knows? But I'm very grateful that she had me do that. So that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's fabulous.
I hope she continues it. That's awesome.
Because I've seen you do that. And then when my daughter only came down, a couple of days ago, she's like, I'm going to do a journal. I was like, oh, yes, do it. And then make sure you keep them all. So, when you're older, you'll look back on it. And, it's like I keep all my kids' stuff from when they were in kindergarten, and, not necessarily everything that they've done in school, but I've kept a lot of it, so that when they're older, they can look back. Now, my mum never did that for me, so I've got no idea,
Wow.
And so I've kept, so that's, I guess that's a little bit like my journaling, but that's for them, so that when they're older, they'll be like, oh my God. And even now, we've moved houses and I found a box of their stuff, and I'll say to my 17-year-old daughter, oh, look what you wrote to me. Like, oh my God, how embarrassing.
I love that. Oh, that's so great. That's so great. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I so appreciate you coming on here with me. This has been so enlightening and so informative and full of life and feeling. I appreciate you taking the time. One of the things that I would love to do is to kind of get your advice. If a woman right now is listening and she's struggling in a relationship that's toxic, like just abusive, and she's feeling all the things and she knows all the things, she's starting to, what would be your advice to her? What would you say to her right now?
Reach out to someone who has been in your shoes and has made it through, and talk to them. And I think a lot of the things that stops women doing that is, above all, is the shame, that we allowed that to happen to ourselves. You know, even with my mum, I used to have this shame, and embarrassment. How could I but it wasn't in my control. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what was happening, you know, in my abusive relationships. I didn't know. And then I felt so shameful. I was like, oh my God, like, how did I allow this person to totally consume my whole being, to the point where, you know, like, they just sucked the life out of me and I don't even know who I am anymore. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah. And not asking for help is actually a trauma response. It's a trauma response by not asking for help, because we think, oh no, you know, I can handle it. I'll just keep it to myself. You know, I mean, I used to have, like, when I'd go shopping with my children, I actually went for about 3 years where I wouldn't leave my house, because I felt like if I left my house, I mean, I used to order my shopping online and get it delivered to my house. And because I didn't want to leave my house, because I felt like if I left my house, people could see like this beacon on my head about this shame that I carried for whatever. But I didn't know anyone, and there wasn't any resources there like there are now to ask for help or to just talk to someone. You know, a lot of my clients, I talk to them before I work with them. You know, I get to know them and I connect with them, and I try and understand them, and, you know, do they understand me? And, you know, can I help them? Do they want to help? Do they want to help themselves? And, you know, and that's the part, is until you get to that point where you are going to accept help, nothing's going to change, because you can't, you know, we can spend so long asking for help with therapy. That's what I did. I was like asking for help with therapy, but I wasn't getting the help that I yearned and that I needed. It was just, I was missing something. And that's because I hadn't been in my shoes, and, you know, they'd gone to uni and learned all this stuff. And so it wasn't until I found not really a life coach, but a trauma coach, who taught me what I know, and to accept my past and not to feel the shame, because, you know, that's not who I am, and that's not what I would have carried that on and then made my kids feel like they should be like, you know, because it's a cycle that you continue. You know, and there's proven facts that, you know, when you, especially as a child born into, you know, say toxicity and narcissism, it's actually generations in your genes.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, because now that I've learned it, I like my grandmother, and my grandmother was an alcoholic, and, you know, and didn't treat herself emotionally well. Obviously, neither did my mum. My mum was not an alcoholic. She did not drink alcohol. She did not smoke cigarettes. My grandmother, on the other hand, did. So then I identified myself that, oh, I have an addictive personality because I drank and I smoked and I did all those things. And so, you know, I could look back into the past and go, right, well, this is how they, my grandmother was in an abusive relationship with my grandfather because he was just a drunken, racist, bigoted old man. And so I saw the pattern. But it wasn't until I was in my 30s and I was like, oh, God, I wish I had known this like so much earlier.
Yeah.
But it's okay that I didn't,
Yeah.
as long as I learned. But you've got to, the thing is people can cry out for help, but they're not really ready yet. They're not there.
Yeah.
They have to be ready. They have to actually be at the end of their tether to go, you know what, I really need to do something to change. I really do need help.
Yeah.
And it's when I say, ask for help.
Yeah.
Talk to someone, ask them questions, and then do the work. Because they say knowledge is power, but I don't believe knowledge is power unless you put it into action. Because you can know a lot of stuff. I knew a lot about self-development, and I know I need to do this. It's like if you're an alcoholic, I know I need to stop drinking, but you keep doing it anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you've got to learn, you've got to get to that point where you know all this stuff, but then you have to actually take action. And that all that is stepping out that comfort zone. Like I did with my joy and finding my happiness, I had to tell myself, stop. Of course you enjoy, of course you deserve to be happy. So I had to force myself to get up and play with my kids and smile and laugh and be carefree. It's like I would always think if I went on a holiday, I'd be so anxious because I don't know what it's like to relax because I'm so highly strung all the time.
Yeah.
Until you accept the fact that, okay, I got to stop that. And how can I change it? What can I do? And then start doing little baby steps.
Exactly.
Because you can look up at the mountain and know that's where you want to climb. But if you don't look just forward one step at a time, you'll never get there. You'll never know what you can achieve.
Yeah.
So always ask for help, but ask the right person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Your friends aren't always the right person.
No, because they'll go, oh, like they'll give you totally the wrong advice.
Yeah.
Or
they'll just say, just leave. Like it's that easy.
Yeah. Or they'll give you a cuddle and they'll say, you'll be right.
Yeah.
And you might feel good in that moment. Oh, okay, yeah, a little bit of relief, but that's not what you need. Yeah. Sometimes, I needed a bit of tough love. I needed someone to shake me up and go, Kimberley, you need to stop talking to yourself this way. You need to start doing this. You need to, it's not your fault. Stop. Keep analyzing or trying to understand that other person because you'll never understand. It's like, watching a TV show about a psychopath and you never understand why people do what they do. You're like, why do people do that? You could sit there for 10 years trying to work out why they do that and you'll never have the answer. Exactly. But if you understand why do I do that? Mm-hmm. It's so much easier to understand yourself than to worry about other people. Because, especially women, we want to fix people. We want to make men better and we want to help them because, we don't want to think that we could fail at that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of times where women stay around in those sorts of relationships because we want to fix them. We want to make them better. But all they're doing is making us worse.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely. So for those of us that are listening now live or on the replay, where can people find you? Where are you?
Okay, so I'm just in the process of doing a website, but I have my business page is Self Love by Design. You can look me up there. You can friend request me so you can get to know me as a person. And I also have a group called Self Love by Design as well. So very easy, very simple. Type it up. My profile picture is the same picture. But yeah, I love it when people want to friend request me and I get to know them and they get to know me and, and I can connect them on a more of a personal level because that's where you can learn and accept help. Because if it's too clinical and there's no connection there, then there's nothing. So I love it when people want to send me a friend request and join my group and just to get to know me and I can get to know them and help them. And I have those relationships with my clients. We become friends. and I can offer so much more support that way.
I love that. I love that. And if you could, once we're done with this, in the comment section, put, a couple of those links in so people can just easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll put my boundary workshop link in there, and sign up and come and have a chat with me. And I would love that.
Beautiful. I love that. Any closing words before I close up here?
Just thank you for letting me be here and telling my story. And this is what people don't realize is, it's actually very therapeutic to be able to tell your story without emotion and without, it's very empowering, because I could never tell my story without crying. And I can tell my story without feeling shame, without feeling like I'm a bad person, because, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And most of the time, if you're suffering depression and anxiety, the symptoms are all the same. How you feel about yourself is the same. It's just that your story is different to mine. My story is different to someone else's. But how we feel and how we heal can be the same process.
100%. I totally agree with that. Well, thank you so much. I know it's the next day now, right?
Yes, 1 o'clock in the morning. That's okay.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us here. I appreciated all the time, all the detail. I got so much out of it. So I thank you.
Me too.
And I really do know that the women who were watching and the women who are going to be watching on replay will really get inspired and really feel some power from you. So I really appreciate you, taking some time out of your night to sit with us.
You're very welcome.
Of course. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform with Kimberley that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Have an amazing day. Much love.